Strategic approaches to paying off collections for better credit outcomes. Many consumers mistakenly believe that paying off collections will automatically improve their credit scores. However, without a strategic approach, paying off collections will result in minimal benefit, especially under older credit score models. Now, this lesson will focus on how collections impact your credit scores, the risks of resetting credit reporting timelines, and the best strategies for managing your collections. So, I'm going to talk about a list of reasons and how each one, why you should take action. For reason number one, the statute of limitations and its impact on your collections. So, let's talk about the statute of limitations. The statute of limitations, also known as SOL, determines how long a creditor can legally pursue you for debt. However, the date of first delinquency governs how long the account will remain on your credit under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Again, this is in reference to that often quoted aspect, which is true, but they're not telling the whole story when they say it falls off after 7 years, or you don't have to worry after 7 years. This is the statute of limitations that 7 years is about, and the statute, the limitations vary with different types. So keep this in mind. The SOL timelines vary also by state and the type of debt. So everybody always hear about the type of debt, and that's largely a reason why when people often quote about the statute of limitations and they just key in on the 7-year mark or 7-year timeline and the 10 years for bankruptcy, because it's a little complicated and you really can't sum that up. So the only way you can boil down and be a universal truth is just say 7 years. But then there's some additional things you got to consider, and there's some additional time that gets added too. But that when that 7-year mark starts and where it came from is the part that you have to determine on an individual basis, as well as the state in which you live in and where the creditor live in when the transaction took place. So again, SOL timelines vary by state and type of debt, like mortgages, credit cards, or judgments. Okay. Unfortunately, if when you're dealing with collections, if you make payments, that even a partial payment, that can reset the statute of limits clock, giving creditors more time to take legal action. So before you negotiate, you consider negotiation with creditors. Before you consider paying them anything, make sure you know exactly where you are and where that loan is in terms of things like, obviously you want to make sure you validate and verify that it actually is yours, that the original debt was yours, and that in some of the other statutes that you could pursue first that can have it thrown out before you even consider paying it. But remember, when we talk about removing things from credit, we're not necessarily resolving the actual debt owed, but we're working on removing it from credit. Because sometimes you can have things removed from credit, but you still owe them, so they can still take legal action. Here we're talking about actual debt and not just what's being reported. So for example, say you have a credit card and it's in a state that says that the statute of limitations for negative debt is only 4 years, not 7. The collector can pursue you for 4 years from the date of last activity. So this particular debt type in this particular state says that they can only go 4 years, not 7. So they don't have 7, they got 4. And it's from the date of last activity. And so, but if you turn around and make a payment on that debt after 3 years, you just start the clock again, and now they got another 4 years. So if you start making payments and and then you stop again, now they got another 4 years. So you want to be sure where you are on the clock before you start talking about paying off collections. It's not that you don't want to, but you want to make sure you're doing it in a way that protects you, benefits you at best, and protects you at worst if it doesn't. So my recommendation is that you be cautious when paying off old debts that are close to the end of the SOL. First, you got to know when is it. Okay, and then so without a clear plan, you may extend the collection period unnecessarily. So be careful with that. So got to look at your state as well as the debt type to know if you might be closer than you think. Reason number 2, the impact of scoring models on paid collections. So what are scoring models? Those are the different versions of the algorithms that compute your score based on what's on your report. Because you have different scoring models, like mortgage companies exclusively use FICO version 2. Most general lenders use FICO version 8. Most credit reporting agencies report your credit using a FICO 8 score. There are some others for specialty lending like boats and things, but generally speaking, consumer lending, FICO 8, and then there's also a similar, I like to say it's an equivalent, but it's not quite exactly the same, which is Vantage 3.0. Now, a lot of credit monitoring companies use Vantage, but most lenders are using FICO 8 for the actual lending decision. And so, why does that matter? Is how they impact your score, and that's why sometimes you see various scores. Now, credit report change all the time, but the score can vary with the scoring model because the math is a little different. And so the newest of new scoring models out there, FICO 9 and Vantage 3.0. Now, FICO 9 and Vantage 3.0, they ignore paid collections, which helps. So if you got collections that are paid, and if your score gets ran through FICO 9 or Vantage, your scores are going to be higher because they don't care about the paid collections. If it showed that you paid it, so remember, paid. Now, I'm not talking about a zero balance because it got transferred to a third-party collection agency. So it's important to remember, just because the collection says zero, you got to look at the comments and say, is it zero? Was it paid after collection? Or is this zero because it was transferred to another lender, which really means third-party collection agency? But if they're running it through FICO 9, Vantage 3.0, you paid the collection, your scores are going to be better. So just keep that in mind. Now, FICO 8 is still the predominant score because a lot of creditors are still using 8 because FICO is probably more expensive. 9 is more expensive because it's the newest one. It's like a new car. So with FICO 8 and some of the older ones like 7 and then 2, they still penalize you for paid collections. And keeping the negative 9 status, as they call it, on your report even after payment. So that's why it's important when if you're looking to clean up collections, if you pay them to get them paid off, you want to follow up and ensure that they update your information to reflect it, because once you paid it, you should be compelling them to change that collection status because it's no longer a collection. You paid it, so you wanted them to update it to paid as agreed, even if it's after it was in a previous collection status. Again, another set of work. So, key point: an account in good standing reports as a 1. I'm sure you guys have seen that on there. Like if it's a mortgage, it's M1. If it's a credit card, it's R1. That R is standing for revolving. It's a revolving account. Accounts and collections are marked as code 9, indicating high risk and severe credit damage. Even with a zero balance after payment, that 9 status stays, and that's what I was talking about before. You have to work and follow up afterwards. If you're going to pay a collection, you always want to have a deletion letter in advance signed and agreed to by them, saying that they're going to update the information. If it's part of your credit, if it's a third-party collection agency reporting account, you want to remove it altogether. But if it's one of your original creditors that's part of your credit history and age, we just want the information updated to reflect what happened. You don't want to still be being penalized for having a collection when you made good on it. So I recommend that if the lender is using FICO 9, which you may or may not know that, you can always ask. Paying collections might help. Now, otherwise, negotiate a pay for delete agreement, or dispute the inaccuracies to remove the collection completely if you think that's an option. So it's either or. But if it's not inaccurate, if it's a small dispute, if it's a small enough collection, it might be faster and easier for you to pay to delete, get the deletion letter in advance, pay to delete it, and just have them remove it. If it's substantial and you say, oh, okay, well, I would rather try to dispute it first. You dispute it first, and then if you can't, then you may want to consider negotiated payment, whether it's through and then you want to negotiate whether you want to pay it in full or partial. But either way, you want to ensure it, because the goal is to clean up your credit. So if they're accepting partial payments, you want to know in advance that they agree to remove it or update it, depending on whether it's original account or third-party collection. So reason number 3, you want the reporting timelines and the date of first default, DOFD, because the date of first default is the key date in that 7-year clock that determines how long the account will remain on your credit report. However, some creditors illegally update the date of first default after payments, causing the negative item to remain on your report longer than it's supposed to. So let me give you an example scenario, hopefully this will make it clear. Say you have a Capital One credit card that went into collections 4 years ago. Normally it would drop off in 3 years. Say if that's the state you're in, it drop off in 3 years. However, if you make a payment today, the date of last activity resets because you went back to them and did that, and the account can stay open on your report another 7 years. Now, it's okay if we're talking about when they went into collections. If we're talking about it's still a Capital One account, it's still the original account, and the status is collections on your credit report. That's not the same as if it went into collections, charged off, then sold to a third-party collection agency who has a whole new account, and then they're saying original creditor is Cap One. That would reset the report, and it would go the full another 7 years. Because remember, if you're already 4 years in, you would have 3 years left. But if you make negotiated payments with them, that potentially resets the clock, because now your date of last activity. But guess what? You don't necessarily want the account to go away. If you're rectifying it and resolving it, what you really want is to clean it up afterwards. So it's okay that it's going to be on there another 7 years if you intend to clean it up, but you want to make sure when you start that process, you're going to commit to the end and make the payments and pay the thing off and then get it updated. So how do you avoid resetting the timelines unintentionally, or at least in a way that doesn't hurt you? So number one, like I said, only make payments if you can secure in advance a pay for delete agreement. You want it in advance, and there's a letter template I can provide you for that, where you say to them in advance, we negotiate whatever the payment, whether it's in full or partial. You send them a letter and you say, hey, upon receipt of payment in the amount of whatever's agreed, that you allow this to either be removed from my credit if it's a third party, or updated and all the negative information is removed after upon receipt of payment. They agree to it, they sign off on it, and so then you go ahead and pay them. You have your proof of payment and the letter. If they don't update the account for the original accounts, or if they don't or if it's a third-party collection agency and they don't remove it for you in advance, you have your proof of payment and your pay delete letter. You can actually submit that to the credit bureaus yourself directly, and they will remove it, because they said you have a letter from the creditor that says, hey, we're okay, we're removing it if we get our money, and then you show that they got their money. But if the date of first default is incorrect anyway, you can dispute that through the credit bureaus using that process that I talked about to dispute it. So you can either dispute it, or you can accept it the way it is and just pay it off to make it go away. So either way, that's how you avoid resetting the clock. Now, I'm going to give you some best practices for handling collections strategically. Assess the age of the debt. If the statute of limitations is closed, it may be better to wait rather than extending the collection period. If you can't commit to the process, you don't want to start a payment thing if you're not going to go through to the end. But if you're close to the statute of limitations, you may want to wait and consider that. But make sure you got your date right. So that's the thing. Make sure you got your date right for that type of debt and for the state that you're in. You want to use pay to delete agreements. Now, some collection agencies will agree to remove the item from your report if you pay the debt in full or settle. You want to make sure you got that worked out in advance. And again, that we're talking collection agencies. You want to dispute inaccuracies, obviously. Review your credit report for errors in specifically the date of first default or the account status, and file disputes as needed. And then, of course, you want to monitor your credit regularly. You can use the free credit report, annualreport.com, although you can only use that once a year. If you're going to use any of the free credit monitoring services, the key things you got to remember is however you monitor your credit, whether it's free or whether you're paying for it, you need to be monitoring all three bureaus: TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. It's almost, I'm gonna say it's not quite pointless, but you need to monitor all three because they are separate, and fixing something on one has no effect on the other one. And not if you got issues on the one that you're not monitoring, and you apply for credit and your lender is using that one and you have no idea what's there, you'll be in for a shock. So to fix your credit, it's like your car. You got to watch all four tires, not just three of them, not just two, not just one. You want to make sure all four of your tires are at the right air level. You want to make sure all four tires are in good condition, and you want to make sure all four tires are not flat, obviously. And so the same thing, you want to make sure all three credit bureaus, the information is good, it's accurate, and all three credit bureaus are in good standing, and all three credit bureaus are being addressed and monitored. So, in short, paying off collections can be beneficial, of course, but only when done strategically. Understanding the rules on statute of limitations, the credit scoring model, and the reporting timelines helps you make informed decisions and come up with a strategy that will work. Because a lot of times out there are people on the internet that will give you strategies, and it's not that the strategies are wrong, but if they don't tell you how to use them and when to use it, if you use the wrong strategy for the wrong situation, at minimum you won't get any result. At worst, it could create problems and make it worse, and you don't want to do that. So you gotta understanding. Now, if the collection is close to expiration, waiting may be better. But don't just sit around and wait and see what happens. Know that you're waiting for a reason and know how long you're going to be waiting for. Now, if you decide to pay, of course, you want to negotiate a pay for delete agreement whenever possible. And obviously you want them to you want to do that in advance of sending any money. And of course, you want to monitor your credit, like I said, for accuracy and all of that stuff. Now, by using these strategies, you can improve your credit profile more effectively and avoid many of the common pitfalls that come with dealing with collections accounts and collection agencies. And because those are the main items that typically impact people's credit, especially when folks are falling below 600, and even more so when they're going below 550. So hopefully you find this helpful. I've been trying to make the videos a little shorter. Again, more information, there'll be information in the show notes. You can go to https://creditrenovatorslllc.net. You can go there and register for the weekly webinar. You can go there and register for and request a free credit consultation. And you can also register to have access to my DIY credit repair platform. It's an AI supported software platform that can help you with this, because it can generate pay to delete letters for you. It'll read, you upload your credit report, it will read those items, and if you select in the selections that you want to pay to delete, it will create a pay to delete letter customized for your account, your situation, and you can send that off to them. Now you can do it a couple ways. You can contact the credit collection agency and work the agreement out, and then you can send the letter to them saying, based on your negotiation. But if you want to be the first one to propose it, it can create the letters for that too. Easy. It'll write it for you. All you have to do is print it out, throw it in an envelope, stick a stamp on it. And so this can save, if you're trying to figure out how to write these letters, the platform can do that for you. And right now it's free. So hopefully you'll find this helpful. So until the next video, God bless you and good luck. Oh, just want to remind you guys, please, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. If you find this video helpful and you know anybody else that can benefit from it, please share. Go down there and click the arrow to share. It's real easy. All you gotta do is click the arrow. You can share it to somebody through Messenger, through Facebook, any of the other social media platforms. You can share to somebody directly through their Messenger or text messaging as well, and they'll get the link, and then they'll click and come on, and they'll be able to see the video as well. And I also invite you to register for my weekly webinar on Wednesdays. It's a Q&A. We talk about all things credit. Folks come on and they ask questions, and so you can certainly learn from those questions as well. So I recommend you do that in any of those ways. There's plenty of resources down in the description that can help you with just about any situation. And if you have questions, you can always reach me through the website and through the link, and you can get a free consultation from me. So until the next video, I thank you guys, and you take care. Bye.